And here are your hosts, Marx and Julie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to GenreTainment. This is your co-host, Marx, joined as always with
co-host Julie. GenreTainment is where we talk about what's happening in the world of books, film, TV, and tabletop role-playing games. We give you interviews with writers, game designers, directors, producers, and actors in both independent and not-so-independent creations.
And on this episode, we have a return guest, Britton Watkins.
Hey,
he's well known. Hello, it's great to see you again.
I'm not that well known, Mark.
You're well known to us, I think, and in the Conlang world.
Yes.
Well, you're a Conlang creator, constructed language creator. He's worked on like Star Trek Into Darkness. You've worked on the languages like Klingon, Na'vi, Vulcan, but most recent and something we'll talk about Aklo with some of my projects. But now your newest thing is working on a language for the Predator franchise. So
definitely officially welcome back to GenreTainment.
Yes.
Thank you, Julie. It's good to be back.
Yeah, I looked it up, and I think last time you were on was like episode 99, and it was like 2015, I think.
Yeah, I do. It was this century, I think. It was actually in this.
So we're excited to have you back. And before we catch up on what you've been doing since, like Predator, let's cover a little bit of basics. If people want to learn all about your background, they can go to episode 99 and GenreTainment. But just to get us started here, just in case this is the first episode anyone's watched with you or any of our Conlang guests, what's the basic definition of Conlang and what drew you to that field?
Well, a Conlang is a constructed language. I mean, so it's an intentionally invented, made up language. But once it's made up and it has grammatical rules, it can become a real language that people can learn and speak and use for a podcast if you need to. But it means constructed language, Conlang. And it's in the dictionary now, that word. It's a real thing. And a person who does it is a Conlanger. I actually made a documentary film even called Conlanging, the Art of Crafting Tongues, which people can find streaming various places on the internet and watch it. And you can learn all about the phenomenon of conlanging in that documentary.
Cool.
Awesome.
It's a feature. It's like an hour and a half long. And it's not specifically about people who do it for entertainment, although some of the famous people who do it for entertainment purposes are in there. But it's about the broad landscape of everybody who uses language creation as an art form and it involves it in some aspect of their life. For some people it's like a passing hobby. For other people it's like they're fluent in their languages and they write novels in them, and like it's crazy. I mean, crazy. But yeah, you can learn about that in the documentary.
And another thing that you've done since the last episode that we had you on back in 2015, you have been working on Predator. How did you get involved with the Predator franchise?
Well, I know Na'vi from the Avatar franchise and the creator of Na'vi, Paul R. Frommer, very well, and we're quite close. And he was originally approached by the producers, director of Predator, Badlands. And he was not in a place at that time to take that project. So he asked if I was interested. I said, sure, I'll talk to him. And that led to their hiring me to very rapidly have to start, figuring out words to put on weapons and then dialogue. And then, it just everything. So it was an introduction through Paul, actually. So it's, that just a professional introduction and one I'm very grateful for. because it was. I mean, if go see Predator Badlands, it's a wild ride, and that ride even included then the streaming film Killer of Killers, which has been out since June of this year, and I'm actually one of the characters in that movie. I play the voice of the Predator warlord in Killer of Killers.
Oh,
So
really?
like it turned into like
Oh, that's so cool.
it wasn't just here's 20 lines of dialogue, thank you. It was a whole like year and a half long journey kind of thing. Yeah,
Wow.
with two films.
I did think when I was hearing him, like, that voice sounds familiar, but
Yeah, I thought it sounds just like me. Yeah, just like me.
That's awesome. So you said you had to get into it really fast, or you didn't have a lot of time, or well, you were introduced to it and had to rapidly get ready for it. So I guess first, how rapid was that? How quick a turnaround did you have to do originally? And then what was the first thing you asked yourself, or the first creative decision you had to make on this language?
For the Predator stuff, for Yautja?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, there are a lot of movies. They've been out since 1987, and they're, not a lot of talking, a little bit in, a few lines of kind of quasi dialogue between a couple of predators in one of the films. But not a lot of dialogue. There were more visual things that appear, like there was Yautja written in holograms, and there was on the the gauntlet and the explosion and everything at the end of the first movie. So I looked back, like I always do. Is there a cultural basis for this? And just went with an amalgamation. I tried to be true to the aesthetics of things that were said on screen. And there's the physicality of them. They're big, and they need to sound predatorial. Like they need to sound big and scary. So inevitably, I think when you have a humanoid form who's producing something out of a vocal tract, you get this kind of big monsterish sounding stuff, and that's kind of what we had, the little bit of on-screen canon. But mainly I needed to come up with something that an actor could pronounce, and that the director was happy with, and that once they started, there's a lot of dialogue in Predator Badlands. So once they started filming, and once they were in production, and they got an idea on set. I was not there. They did all this in New Zealand. I was here in Southern California. But they got used to what it sounded like for Demetrius to speak Yautja, and then it was just like, okay, this is now all he's going to do, all his lines in Yautja. And Elle Fanning had a few lines in Yautja, which I taught her over Zoom, but most of her dialogue is in English, and you'll have to see the film to understand how that works. But I mean, Demetrius speaks the entire film. I mean, he speaks Yautja for it, so there's a lot of it in there. And and that dialogue, as a production evolves, some of the ideas change and the dialogue changes, and it has to fit the cut. I mean, like all of it. There was a lot of tweaking and massaging. So it was a big adventure. It really was.
Were there any linguistic influences that you drew upon, even indirectly, of like already established languages here on Earth?
Well, I mean, so again, a human being has to pronounce it. So Demetrius had to be able to say all the words I came up with. So early on, I met with him, and I'm like, "Can you make this like deep throat sound? Ah, ah, ah. Can you do it softly? Can you do it strongly?" And so there are things that the human vocal tract can do that we don't normally do, that I tried to put in there. We don't do in English. I mean, there's nothing remotely like the name Deck or Clay, his brother's name in the movie. There's nothing like that in English, but he could do it very well. And now he can do it better than I can, because these are muscles down here, and the stronger they get, the better you can do it. He was saying stuff all day long, every day. So I did look for things that were a little bit out there that humans could do, but they don't normally do. But it also needed to serve the story, and it's not just there are battles and a lot of fighting, there's a lot of battle scenes, but there are also quiet moments in the film where people are just talking about stuff. And you don't want everything to sound like battle royale with sabers and everything if you're just having a conversation about something. So it needed to also work for quiet moments, and that just means having sounds that they're comfortable for people to say. And Demetrius is he's a New Zealander, so I assumed that he would be able to say, like, start a word with nga, nga, the sound nga, not na, but nga. So a velar nasal, and be able to do that, whereas an American actor might not be able to do that. So there were certain influences from Maori, from the native Polynesian language of New Zealand, and other things that I put in there because I could, because I figured that the performer, I didn't know Demetrius at the time when I came up with the la idea, but he can do it. And it's actually one of the sounds in his last name, Koloamatangi. The ni at the end of his last name is actually in there. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering while you were talking if he ever got like a sore throat or a headache from having to speak.
I don't know about the headache, but the sore throat, you do get this when you first start making this sound in the back of your throat. You can only do it so many times, and then the muscles just get tired. It's like being at the gym, and like the muscles get tired, and you need to rest. And I told him, I was like, don't do a line, don't practice a line more than 5 times without resting your throat if it has the cue, what we write as a cue for the romanization. Don't do it more than 5 times because you need to rest. You need to build up to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering about that because we lived for a while. We were living in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I was working with the public. So I was trying to speak with their local accent, and I was able to do it most of the time, but it gave me a stress headache, a tension headache, because I was holding my jaw different, in order to do it, and your tongue's kind of going in a different spot. And doing that all day, every day, about halfway through the day, my head would start to hurt. I'd sometimes.
That's a mild difference compared to.
I know it's a very mild difference. And I'm thinking.
No, but I know that exactly what you're talking about. When I moved to Japan in the early 90s and had to speak Japanese at work all day long every day, I would go home the most exhausted I've ever been in my life. And it wasn't because I was digging ditches. It was that I was like trying to teach people how to use a mouse in Japanese. And it was just so different the first 6 months or so. And eventually I got used to it. And then it was easy. But those first 5-6 months, I would go home. I was so exhausted. I could barely even lie there and watch television. Like it was just exhausting to operate in another language, and for that to be like mission critical all day long. It's a lot of work. Yeah, it is. I understand.
Yeah, I can only imagine that.
Absolutely real.
So we've talked about a lot of challenges with this language. I mean, was there any other like big surprise or tough challenge you faced with this language or teaching actors how to speak it?
No, not really. I mean, again, we talk about this a little bit kind of peripherally in the documentary, but language is always in service of something. I mean, right now, English is in service of our cognition and our being able to put our thoughts together and communicate them with each other. In a film, the invented language is in the service of the story, right? And the director and whoever's cutting it has to work with everything. So, it would happen even if all the dialogue were in English. They would be like, well, this scene now this needs to be a tiny bit longer, or it needs to be a tiny bit tighter, this thing. So we have to tweak the language in it. And they would tweak the English easily, and it's everybody's native language, including the director and the editor and everybody else. But when they needed to tweak the Yautja to fit something, that was, it's a lot of work. And they're like, well, can't we just chop it off at the end? And I'm like, well, if you don't want the actor to say I did it, then yeah, you could chop it off, and then but in Yautja, I comes at the end, not at the beginning. So it the grammar's different, and the words fit together differently. So that was a little challenging, making it all work, but we did it. I mean, we did it. We did all the collaboration we needed to do so that when fans start learning Yautja, they'll be like, in that one scene that was a little, and I'm like, that's an idiom, that's colloquial, that's that's the lazy way, I'm gonna think about it way to do it, where you're using contractions and things like that. But we made it all work and fit. But in terms of the construction of the language, or the sounds of it and all that, again, even over the course of recording this today, somebody's going to mispronounce something. I mean, English is, on average, it comes out and it's all correct and all, but here and there's a word you don't say it correctly, or I repeat something that's like, well, we don't really need that in there, so you can edit that out. People don't speak perfectly, but on average, we error correct for anything that other people were listening to say, and that's the reality of all real communication. And
That's
this
true.
is, we're talking about humanoids. I mean, the Predator is a humanoid in the sense that, it's a body with 2 arms and 2 legs and a vocal tract, and they've got some extra things, mandibles and things that we don't have. But but it's still, it is a guy in a suit. I mean, that's what it is. So we have to mush all those factors together and still get something that people enjoy. I mean, there'll be people who probably are like, well, I wish it could be so much different and more different and weird or whatever. But, it needs to be true to the established canon and what real people can do. So that's what we invented for this movie.
Yeah.
Did the prosthetics or the suit that he had to wear, like over his face and mouth and everything, did that interfere with his ability to speak the Yautjan?
No, because when he actually had to speak, and it was like a close up, a hero shot, whatever, on camera, his face on set was open, so there was a circle open in the suit, and that was then created digitally by Weta and other VFX vendors. So the face that you see with the mandibles talking and the cheeks vibrating with the breath and all that other kind of stuff, that's all in the computer. That's all.
I was wondering they might have did that. Do you know if they added any, because I know like they make a lot of clicking, growling noise in previous installments. Does that mean anything in their language? Like, do they digitally add any non-human sounds that mean something in the mix?
Well, I talked to, actually at the premiere, one of the main dialogue, like editing guys, was sitting right next to me on the other side of his wife. And he was like, we had to touch every utterance, every Yautja utterance in there. We had to change it in some kind of way. We had to do some kind of modification. But there's no sound in there that they add in that is separately meaningful. I mean, as much as possible, I tried to channel the sound, or the original Predator sound. The original Predator sound, people can make that sound, but I'm not good at making it. And it's a vocal fry sound that you make lower in the throat, but it's hard to do. So I didn't want to build that into everyday speech. But what I did is make the verb for to be, like I am, you are, he is, she is hurr. So it's rolled, but it's at the front, like a trilled R would be in Spanish. But if you
Mhm.
trill an R in Spanish, like then you trill the predator R. So you breathe out, make an H, and you just, and that's the word for to be. And that occurs as, and there's a kind of, when you're proud of what is
That's kind of fun.
happening. Yeah, it's hooray. He says it as hooray. And then when you're disappointed or you're like, I'm really not down with this being the way it is, it's hurr. So the hurr is still in there, and then it gets modified like it could in any language to change the kind of gist or the adverbial feeling inflection on it. But and in the alphabet, hurr is a single letter. It's just one letter in the Yautja alphabet, and you can add it into other sounds, like the word for a lot, like minis, ho. So it can have a ho, and then it can end in that sound. So yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
well, I tried to put it in there, but in a more usable way than having to make the predator noise perfectly, because it's hard to do.
Yeah, that really is. Does the language have any room to evolve for future Predator installments? Did you kind of
Oh,
work that
sure.
in?
No. Yeah, absolutely. And the writing system. I mean, these are technologically incredibly advanced people. I mean, they're a whole lot more advanced than we are. They have faster than light travel. They have all of these, like, laser based, physical grappling hooks and all this kind of stuff that we don't have. They're more advanced than we are. So they're going to have the same things, at least, that we have, the ability to learn other languages. They're famous for being able to mimic things in the context of the fight, to mimic other people or mimic other sounds. So in the writing system, I came up with extra letters that they don't need for predator. They don't have letters for M or B or P or B or B, because they involve lips. So that's not in their everyday speech. But if they're mimicking that, then they need some symbol for that. So if your name is Veronica with a V or Maria with an M, you can still write your name and put it on your T-shirt in the Predator alphabet.
Oh,
So,
cool.
and they wouldn't need to do that every day. But if they needed to learn or mimic or say, some name, a place name or whatever that occurs in human language, then there are extra symbols in there that they can use to do that. I mean, that doesn't actually end up happening in the film where there's a visualization of that, but the system that I came up with is exactly expandable in that way that you asked, Julie, so that it works for the film, but it should also work for other things that come up in the future, because I thought about that. I mean, very intentionally thought about that, what people might want to do with it in other films or off screen.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, you mentioned the symbols, and you mentioned them earlier before, because Predator is like one of my favorite movies as a kid, and my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, the first one. And there's not, like you said, there's not a lot of talking in the earlier ones, but a lot of symbols. And those symbols, when you looked at them, did they mean anything? Those symbols? Did you have to work off that base, or did you have to give them meaning and then work off that?
Nothing up to the point of Killer of Killers, which again came out earlier than Badlands did. None of it was grammatical. None of it was language where everybody knew, oh, in this hologram on this screen, there's a word that means pray. Like they did not do that. I talked to Alec Gillis, who was the original Predator, creature creator, along with the other people on the original film. And Studio Gillis did the suit for Demetrius, for for New Zealand and for all the filming.
Mhm.
And he said that, for the Gauntlet, they had to go to Radio Shack and get what could make. They needed a practical thing to put into a prop to film with the sequence code changing on it as the countdown went off. And he said his original intention were for those things to be numbers. And then there were other things that he referred to in the conversation he had with me as a kind of Sanskrit, like runes, the different, more curvilinear shaped things that were supposed to be the writing. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, a few years after that, the franchise released a what were supposed to be numbers as letters. And for years, for 20 years, people have been using that as an alphabet and to put Predator writing. And I even saw a guy who had a tattoo on his neck. And, this, I don't know how long ago he got that. But again, there were visual things that I tried to remain faithful to. So if you are seeing the movie for the first time, you're going to see some curvilinear stuff that looks more, roundy, and you're going to see some very straight stuff, and then you're going to see some in between stuff in the holograms. But they all are for a coherent system that is used to write. For example, now write the word "hus," which means pray, in the Yautja language that I created. And it doesn't matter whether it's "hus" written in the kind of digital diode-looking font, or if it's "hus" in the more curvilinear thing. It's still all a different typeface in the same system.
Awesome. Okay. And one thing more with Predator language, because we talked a little bit about it off camera, and I wanted to mention it. What does the name of the language mean? Because you translated it for us.
Well, the name Yautja is Yao as a person, and Tia is TJA Cha, which ends up being pronounced just Cha, like cha cha cha, basically, when we say it. But Yautja, it means a person who hunts. So their core identity is the hunt and going out and hunting. Cha is the verb for hunting, and in the iconic phrase, Chaos it means hunt habitually alone the Yautja. All of those collectively who call themselves Yautja. Chaos hunt. We hunt. We regularly, habitually hunt alone, meaning we don't have help from other people. Yautja, and nen is a grammatical particle that collectivizes things. It means we're not talking about one person, we're talking about all of them together, everybody who would identify as or be identified as a predator, a Yautja. We all hunt alone. And the word cha appears in that sentence twice. So it's grammatical. It's their rules for how everything gets used. It's not just arbitrary.
Nice. Also, I can't remember if we said this on camera or not, but you had a starring role in Killer of Killers, right? Did you? I can't remember if you said it off.
So I had to do anything that was Yautja language for that movie. And again, when I started working on Badlands, the Killer of Killers project was completely top secret. Nobody outside of the people who were making the film knew about it. So I learned about it months after I was already doing the language. And they were like, oh, yeah, by the way, there's this other project. And at the end, there was a need for the warlord to talk, at the end. And so I recorded the dialogue, and I'm like, you need to tell me who I need to teach. Just put us on Zoom, and I'll teach them how to say it, whatever. They're like, well, could we just use your voice? and because you already did it, you already recorded it all already. So could we just use your voice? And again, the manipulation, the digital audio manipulation on it is very heavy. I can vaguely recognize myself as the person performing that character, but the pitch is so different, and like the time, everything is so different that it's anybody could have done it. And at one point, I got a call from Dan, the director, and he's like, this one line, could you just kind of like say this bigger and meaner? And I'm like, so I'm here at home, with the same computer I'm talking to you on right now. And I just like stood up and like put my computer up high on a box, and I just like yelled it instead of saying it, And so that's modern filmmaking. There you go. That's how it happens.
Nice. I bet that was fun.
It was fun. It was fun to see myself performing that. What he's like 10 feet tall, or a 9 foot tall character, or something like that. I mean, it's kind of fun to like in your alternate reality to live in that kind of character for a few minutes. It was fun. I mean, everything about it was fun. There was a lot of it was challenging, but it was very meaningful to me to work on it because they believed in it so much. Like the filmmakers, the director Dan Trachtenberg, and everybody who was making that film, really, both of those films really believed in them. And when you're on that kind of project, when people are really committed and they're like, we want this to be as right as it can be, whatever right means, like that's what we want it to be. It's motivating, and it is meaningful. It's impactful, to certainly better than just, we need 3 lines of dialogue. It doesn't matter what. Just go make something up. We don't care. Like I would much rather be on the. No, we want it to be consistent. We want it to be Yautja, authentically Yautja. We want it to be Yautja. So that was good, really good for both projects.
Awesome. We're talking about passion projects. Let's talk about passion project you did with me. So,
yeah.
I think originally started with a web series pitch that we're working on. It morphed into the novel, the urban fantasy world I have, Obsidian Archives, part of Kepa Crossing, and especially the Obsidian Monsters book coming out very soon at the time of this recording, the full novel. And I thought it'd be cool to have a Cthulhu-influenced language of Aklo. And I can't remember, I think David Peterson suggested you to me, and that's how I found out about you. And originally, that's how we met, I think. He linked us up. And you did an amazing job working on that language. And why don't you talk a little bit about how you researched that language and put it together? If you can remember, it's been a while.
Aklo.
Yeah.
Well, I knew we were going to talk today, so I'm going to confess that I looked up the original kind of creative brief for it, and there is a blurb describing how the language sounds, and the second half of it says the syllables were determined by a physiological equipment wholly unlike ours, and hence could never be uttered perfectly by human throats. The actual sound, as nearly as human organs could imitate it, could be taken something as Cthulhu. And there is this, one sentence, I think, done by Lovecraft, where he talks about Cthulhu's, sleeping, and it's a crazy sentence, and you can probably find it and put it up on the screen, but it's for the service of the story, right? So he's just described that, a human throat couldn't possibly make these noises, and then he's like spells this with like almost nothing but consonants, and puts it in there. And so but I just like with looking at what was done for Predator, I looked at what was there, like what is there. And there's a drawing of a statue of Cthulhu that he has there's writing on the base of it. So the writing came from that drawing, from the stuff that he wrote on there. And it was as faithful as I could make it to something that, once you put all the reverb on it and everything, the human throat can't exactly make it, but we can come close to it. And maybe when somebody who's possessed by an elder thing is talking and coming out of their throat, it sounds pretty close to what if an elder thing were making it 20,000 leagues under the sea, so I just had to imagine all the different parameters, and do the best I could. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun because it's so weird. Like, it's supposed to be the weirdest language I've ever imagined. And there are other languages in sci-fi. I mean, there's the creatures from Arthur C. Clarke from Rendezvous with Rama, who are like the octo spiders, and they speak in visual flashes across their face and like tentacles and stuff like that. So the humans can't possibly produce that. They don't have a face that lights up and makes colors, but they can learn it to learn to listen to it. And then the octo spiders can learn to listen to human speech, and they can just like the I don't remember the derogatory term for them in the film District 9 was the prawns. The aliens spoke in a way that humans couldn't pretend to make those sounds, but they could learn to recognize the alien speech, and the aliens could recognize the South African English, and then they can communicate, but they're using two different languages. So I kind of, with Aklo, felt like, okay, we're kind of in between, where the humans, when they try to say it, are going to be as close as they can, enough that the elder things can understand it, and vice versa. So with enough reverb, it kind of sounds like that. I hope.
Nice. So I'll put you on spot. Can you say a word?
And Aklo, back from 11 years ago, Marx, it was a long time ago.
I know it was.
Back from all that time ago, I remember that when you're talking about blood in some line, there was quack dong, and quack is a classifier that is required in Aklo to talk about then a noun that is a liquid. So quack means whatever you're about to talk about is a liquid. And, in the Aklo world, in this case is blood, thong is blood, but you could probably have like quack flesh or quack whatever else in Aklo, so the classifier is like, helps you with the atmosphere that, this might be something that you kind of recognize, but it might also be kind of messed up, like everything can be a little bit gelatinous, everything. And I mean that metaphorically, and physically. I mean, everything could be kind of gelatinous, right? So the fun thing about Aklo was that it's like multi-dimensional too. So there are all of these like pre words that you can stick on things, to say what this thing that I'm talking about right now exists in another reality, but yet I can see it and I can describe it. But when I describe it, I have to say, in the other reality, the gelatinous mass was producing hair and quivering in a frightening way. There are all of these pieces and parts that you can assemble to make everything creepy and eldritch, when you're talking about things in Aklo. So that was a lot of fun coming up. And, you know, Lovecraft loved a lot of old terms. Like
Mhm.
he used, like he would say Pylos instead of Harry, you know, like he would use eldritch instead of creepy or whatever, you know. So like he used these old words. So I did a survey of all the old words all the old vocabulary that he liked, and I'm like, okay, I want my classifier or my pre-verbal or pre-nominal prefix to be evocative of that, as creepy as possible. So that was fun to think of it as something that's between dimensions, and my throat is not supposed to be able to say it, but I have to come up with something.
Nice. You did a great job on it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll have to play a little, maybe I'll get a little audio sample to stick in here of you saying some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Just listener beware, you know. You never know what's going to happen
You
if
don't know.
start incanting, you know.
Who knows what'll happen? Have you heard of this play called The King in Yellow? No. So, yeah, that's awesome. I'm very excited to because I've teased a little bit of it and stuff, and then I think the trailer of the original web series we're pitching, we used some of the language, and then my friend Troy Davis has got a short film that you worked with him on too. So, but I'm excited to get it all out there and hear people try to say it.
Well, I mean, again, with enough reverb, it all sounds great.
Yeah. That helps, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does help. But well, the other thing is when I came up with the words, there's like I can say "huakdang," but I can also say "huakdang." You know, you can do it with vocal fry and pronounce it as eldritchly as you can. You know, so it's fun. I mean, Aklo's fun, and it should. I mean, it should be fun. It should be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how the Aklos turn out. So what about...
Do you have any other projects that you'd like to mention that are either coming up or that you've worked on since the last time
I don't have anything else I can talk about. There is a film technically in the can, and I don't know what's going on with it. So I'm not gonna tell you what that is, because knowing that there's constructed language in it might be kind of a spoiler. So I don't want to tell anybody about that.
Don't spoil it for anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't. So I can't talk about that. Yeah, right now I'm exploring the Yautja becoming known in the fan base. There are people, fantastic, intelligent people who are learning to pronounce it already on their own by like watching Killer of Killers, and there's an opening in Killer of Killers where the Yautja comes up and then it's translated, and they're like figuring out, oh, this is that sound, this is the sound JL, or this is the sound TCH or CHD or whatever, and they're then doing their own recordings on like Instagram of like them pronouncing the thing that is not pronounced in the movie. In the movie, it's not pronounced. It just shows up visually written at the beginning of Killer of Killers. And they're now like on camera saying it out loud as a Yautja, you know, in Yautja. And people are doing that. People are learning. I mean, this guy I heard he went to see the movie the other day, and he was like, it was so great to like already know some of the vocabulary in the movie before I ever saw it, because then I recognized these words when I heard them in the dialogue. So these are fans. They're doing all this they're doing this on their own. They're like motivated, and I'm, I want as many people to learn it as want to learn it. That's not going to be a million people. That'll be probably a handful of people, but it's good to have a handful of people out there who can also entertain themselves and, build up their own kind of, sense of fandom and creativity and enjoyment out of the film. I mean, even when there's not another film coming out for 18 months or 2 years or however long it might be. I mean, I have no idea when the next Predator film will be, but it's nice to have something to do with it before and up until the next film comes out. So that's one of the things that the language can do.
Yeah, it's always awesome whenever it takes a life of its own with fans. So
yeah, it does. Doesn't always, but when it does, it's really good. I mean, and again, if it weren't for Na'vi, if it weren't for the Na'vi speaking community from Avatar, I would not know Paul, and I would not have worked on either of these Predator movies. Like it's fictional to an extent, but then it becomes the real thing, and here we are.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
I'm waiting for Duolingo to add it.
Yeah.
They were joking about that. Elle and Demetrius were joking about that with several of the interviewers, Duolingo. But that's a lot of work to it's a lot of work for somebody to put it on Duolingo. So we'll see whether that. I haven't heard from them yet about please put it up here. So we'll see.
If we get a phone call from that owl, don't let it down.
I was going to say,
I'm not going to.
I can just imagine that sweet little owl making the sounds of Yautja or Aklo.
I just think it's always funny to get the widget on the owl is always like, you haven't done your lessons and stuff.
I think the owl might pronounce both Yautja and Aklo better than I can, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
We've been talking about making languages for film and game and TV. So you have a lot of experience. What mistakes do you think that Conlang designers can often make when creating languages for media that newcomers should try to avoid?
Let me answer that in a slightly different way. Let me say that when you have a personal passion to do a language because it's something artistic that you want to do, you are the director. You should have full creative control, and you should make it work for yourself. When you are working on a Hollywood film or you're working with the author of a book or whatever else, then it's a collaborative process, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a give and take with that collaborative process. When you're completely on your own over here, you do whatever you want with it. I mean, the purpose of it is to make you happy. But when you're working with somebody professionally, you have to serve the story. You have to serve the alien culture. You have to serve something else. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people who have spent a lot of time thinking about conlanging and doing it over here for themselves, when they start working with other people, and you know, people can ask for things that you can't do. Like they can actually ask you to like just chop this sentence in half and make it work. Like that kind of thing that you can't do. Like there can be grammatical rules that are just impossible. So you have to be flexible. You have to say, okay, well, I only have 3 syllables to make this work. That's as long as there's any screen time for the alien to say it. So I would say a lot of people are, if you're too rigid about the ideas of how you serve the story, how you solve the problem, that's not good. I mean, that's going to be frustrating to you. It's gonna steal some of your joy out of the project. So again, if it's my thing over here, if I'm building a sculpture out of Tic Tacs and glue, I build it however I want to. But if I'm collaborating with somebody else over here, I have to be flexible. And I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be untrue to your language and the way it sounds or But you might have to say, oh, there's a colloquial way, a kind of, a way to do something funny in the grammar that we don't normally do. And we do that in English too all the time, but not on average. So you can have special cases. You have to be flexible when you're working with a director or an author or whoever it is.
All right. Well, I think we've covered quite a bit.
We've
Predator,
we
Aklo.
have covered quite a bit.
Thanks. So it's so great to have you back on.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for being on the show, Britton. And
I've enjoyed it, and I hope everybody go. If you are remotely interested in Badlands, go see it on the big screen, because it's amazing, and it's amazing in IMAX. Don't miss it on the big screen if you have a chance. If you have a chance to go see it the way it was intended,
right.
big up there, go do that. I would suggest everybody go do that.
Yes, everyone, please be sure to see his most recent work on Predator Badlands, which, as he said, is currently in theaters, and Predator Killer of Killers, which is currently on Hulu.
Yes.
And you can read his work on Aklo and Marx's novel Obsidian Monsters, which is launching on Kickstarter around, February 2026?
Yeah, it'll be pre-launch in January. So pre-launch page.
And you can click over to cabotcrossing.com to keep tabs on that project. And we've included links in the show description. And if you want to listen to more about Conlang, you can find our interviews with David Peterson and Dr. Christine Schreier in previous GenreTainment episodes.
And episode 99 with Britton.
Yes, I know. I was just thinking of that. Episode 99 from 2015. Check it out.
But all of this probably wasn't white back then. And it probably wasn't on video, but anyway.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't on video back then.
And I didn't have all this either. So all right. Well, thanks so much for being back, Britton. We'll have to get you back a lot sooner than
11 years, 10 years.
11 years. Yes, for sure.
We do what we can, right?
Well, that's a wrap.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, well, that's a wrap for today's episode, everyone. And
until next time.
Bad monkey.